Questioner, then there were second density entities here prior to approximately 75,000 years ago. What type of entities were these? RA, IMRA. The second density is the density of the higher plant life and animal life which exists without the upward drive towards the infinite. These second density beings are of an octave of consciousness, just as you find various orientations of consciousness among the conscious entities of your vibration. Questioner, did any of these second density entities have shapes like ours, 2 arms, 2 legs, head, and walk upright on 2 feet? RA, IMRA. The 2 higher of the sub-vibrational levels of second density beings had the configuration of the biped, as you mentioned. However, the erectile movement which you experience was not totally affected in these beings who were tending towards the leaning forward, barely leaving the quadrupedal position. Questioner, where did these beings come from? Were they a product of evolution as understood by our scientists? Were they evolved from the original material of the earth that you spoke of? RA, IMRA. This is correct. Questioner, do these beings then evolve from second density to third density? RA, IMRA. This is correct, although no guarantee can be made of the number of cycles it will take an entity to learn the lessons of consciousness of self, which are the prerequisite for transition to third density. Questioner, is there any particular race of people on our planet now who are incarnated here from second density? RA, IMRA. There are no second density consciousness complexes here on your sphere at this time. However, there are 2 races which use the second density form. One is the entities from the planetary sphere you call Maldic. These entities are working their understanding complexes through a series of what you would call karmic restitutions. They dwell within your deeper underground passageways and are known to you as Bigfoot. The other race is that being offered a dwelling in this density by guardians who wish to give the mind/body/spirit complexes of those who are of this density at this time appropriately engineered physical vehicles, as you would call these chemical complexes, in the event that there is what you call nuclear war. Questioner, I didn't understand what these vehicles or beings were for that were appropriate in the event of nuclear war. RA, IMRA. These are beings which exist as instinctual second density beings which are being held in reserve to form what you would call a gene pool in case these body complexes are needed. These body complexes are greatly able to withstand the rigors of radiation which the body complexes you now inhabit could not do. Questioner, where are these body complexes located? RA, IMRA. These body complexes of the second race dwell in uninhabited deep forest. There are many in various places over the surface of your planet. Questioner, are they Bigfoot-type creatures? RA, IMRA. This is correct, although we would not call these Bigfoot, as they are scarce and are very able to escape detection. The first race is less able to be aware of proximity of other mind/body/spirit complexes, but these beings are very able to escape due to their technological understandings before their incarnations here. These entities of the glowing eyes are those most familiar to your peoples. Questioner, then there are 2 different types of Bigfoot. Correct? RA, IMRA. This will be the final question. There are 3 types of Bigfoot, if you will accept that vibratory sound complex used for 3 such different races of mind/body/spirit complexes. The first 2 we have described. The third is a thought form. Questioner, I would like to ask if there is anything that we can do to aid the instrument's comfort. RA, IMRA. This instrument will require some adjustment of the tender portions of her body complex. The distortions are due to the energy center blockage you would call pineal. I leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one Creator. Adonai. RA, IMRA. I greet you in the love and light of the infinite Creator. I communicate now. Questioner, I think that it would clarify things for us if we went back to the time just before the transfer of souls from Maldek to see how the law of one operated with respect to this transfer and why this transfer was necessary. What happened to the people of Maldek that caused them to lose their planet? How long ago did this event occur? IMRA. The peoples of Maldek had a civilization somewhat similar to that of the societal complex known to you as Atlantis in that it gained much technological information and used it without care for the preservation of their sphere, following to a majority extent the complex of thought, ideas, and actions which you may associate with your so-called negative polarity or the service to self. This was, however, for the most part, couched in a sincere belief/thought structure which seemed to the perception of the mind/body complexes of this sphere to be positive and of service to others. The devastation that racked their biosphere and caused its disintegration resulted from what you call war. The escalation went to the furthest extent of the technology this social complex had at its disposal in the space/time present of the then time. This time was approximately 705,000 of your years ago. The cycles had begun much earlier upon this sphere due to its relative ability to support the first-dimensional life forms at an earlier point in the space/time continuum of your solar system. These entities were so traumatized by this occurrence that they were in what you may call a social complex knot or tangle of fear. Some of your time passed. No one could reach them. No beings could aid them. Approximately 600,000 of your years ago, the then existing members of the Confederation were able to deploy a social memory complex and untie the knot of fear. The entities were then able to recall that they were conscious. This awareness brought them to the point upon what you would call the lower astral planes, where they could be nurtured until each mind/body/spirit complex was able to finally be healed of this trauma, to the extent that each entity was able to examine the distortions it had experienced in the previous life/illusion complex. After this experience of learn/teaching, the group decision was to place upon itself a type of what you may call karma alleviation. For this purpose, they came into incarnation within your planetary sphere in what were not acceptable human forms. This then they have been experiencing until the distortions of destruction are replaced by distortions towards the desire for a less distorted vision of service to others. Since this was the conscious decision of the great majority of those beings in the Maldek experience, the transition to this planet began approximately 500,000 of your years ago, and the type of body complex available at that time was used. Questioner: was the body complex available at that time what we refer to as the ape body? IMRA. That is correct. Questioner: have any of the Maldek entities transformed since then? Are they still second density now, or are some of them third density? IMRA. The consciousness of these entities has always been third density. The alleviation mechanism was designed by the placement of this consciousness in second-dimensional physical-chemical complexes which are not able to be dexterous or manipulative to the extent which is appropriate to the working of the third-density distortions of the mind complex. Questioner: have any of the entities moved on now, made a graduation at the end of a cycle, and made the transition from second-density bodies to third-density bodies? IMRA. Many of these entities were able to remove the accumulation of what you call karma, thus being able to accept a third density cycle within a third density body. Most of those beings so succeeding have incarnated elsewhere in the creation for the succeeding cycle in third density. As this planet reached third density, some few of these entities became able to join the vibration of the sphere in third density form. There remain a few who have not yet alleviated through the mind/body/spirit coordination of distortions the previous action taken by them. Therefore, they remain. Questioner: are these the Bigfoot that you spoke of? IMRA. These are one type of Bigfoot. Questioner: then our human race is formed of a few who originally came from Maldek and quite a few who came from Mars. Are there entities here from other places? IMRA. There are entities experiencing your time/space continuum who have originated from many places, as you would call them, in the creation, for when there is a cycle change, those who must repeat then. Find a planetary sphere appropriate for this repetition. It is somewhat unusual for a planetary mind/body/spirit complex to contain those from many various loci, But this explains much, for, you see, you are experiencing the third dimension occurrence with a large number of those who must repeat the cycle. The orientation, thus, has been difficult to unify even with the aid of many of your teach/learners. Questioner: when Maldek was destroyed, did all the people of Maldek have the fear problem, or were some advanced enough to transfer to other planets? IMRA. In the occurrence of planetary dissolution, none escaped, for this is an action which redounds to the social complex of the planetary complex itself. None escape the knot or tangle. Questioner: is there any danger of this happening to Earth at this time? IMRA. We feel this evaluation of your planetary mind/body/spirit complex's so-called future may be less than harmless. We say only the conditions of mind exist for such development of technology and such deployment. It is the distortion of our vision/understanding that the mind and spirit complexes of those of your people need orientation rather than the toys needing dismantlement, for are not all things that exist part of the Creator? Therefore, freely to choose is your own duty. Questioner: when graduation occurs at the end of a cycle, and entities are moved from one planet to another, by what means do they go to a new planet? IMRA. In the scheme of the Creator, the first step of the mind/body/spirit/totality/beingness is to place its mind/body/spirit complex distortion in the proper place of love/light. This is done to ensure proper healing of the complex and eventual attunement with the totality/beingness complex. This takes a very variable length of your time/space. After this is accomplished, the experience of the cycle is dissolved and filtered until only the distillation of distortions in its pure form remains. At this time, a harvested mind/body/spirit/totality/beingness evaluates the density needs of its beingness and chooses the more appropriate new environment for either a repetition of the cycle or a moving forward into the next cycle. This is the manner of the harvesting, guarded and watched over by many. Questioner: when the entity is moved from one planet to the next, is he moved in thought or by a vehicle? IMRA. The mind/body/spirit/totality/beingness is one with the Creator. There is no time/space distortion. Therefore, it is a matter of thinking the proper locus in the infinite array of time/spaces. Questioner: while an entity is incarnate in this third density at this time, he may either learn unconsciously without knowing what he is learning, or he may learn after he is consciously aware that he is learning in the ways of the law of one. By the second way of learning consciously, it is possible for the entity to greatly accelerate his growth. Is this correct? IMRA. This is correct. Questioner: then although many entities are not consciously aware of it, what they really desire is to accelerate their growth, and it is their job to discover this while they are incarnate. Is it correct that they can accelerate their growth much more while in the third density than in between incarnations of this density? IMRA. This is correct. We shall attempt to speak upon this concept. The law of one has as one of its primal distortions the free will distortion, thus each entity is free to accept, reject, or ignore the mind/body/spirit complexes about it and ignore the creation itself. There are many among your social memory complex distortion who, at this time/space, engage daily, as you would put it, in the working upon the law of one and one of its primal distortions, that is, the ways of love. However, if this same entity, being biased from the depths of its mind/body/spirit complex towards love/light, were then to accept the responsibility for each moment of the time/space accumulation of present moments available to it, such an entity can empower its progress in much the same way as we described the empowering of the call of your social complex distortion to the Confederation. Questioner: could you state this in a little different way, how you empower this call? IMRA. We understand you to speak now of our previous information. The call begins with 1. This call is equal to infinity and is not, as you would say, counted. It is the cornerstone. The second call is added. The third call empowers or doubles the second, and so forth, each additional calling doubling or granting power to all the preceding calls. Thus, the call of many of your peoples is many, many powered and overwhelmingly heard to the infinite reaches of the one creation. Questioner: for the general development of the reader of this book, could you state some of the practices or exercises to perform to produce an acceleration toward the law of one? IMRA. Exercise 1. This is the most nearly centered and usable within your illusion complex. The moment contains love. That is the lesson/goal of this illusion or density. The exercise is to consciously see the love in awareness and understanding distortions. The first attempt is the cornerstone. Upon this choosing rests the remainder of the life experience of an entity. The second seeking of love within the moment begins the addition. The third seeking empowers the second, the fourth powering or doubling the third. As with the previous type of empowerment, there will be some loss of power due to flaws within the seeking and the distortion of insincerity. However, the conscious statement of self to self of the desire to seek love is so central and active will that, as before, the loss of power due to this friction is inconsequential. Exercise 2. The universe is one being. When a mind/body/spirit complex views another mind/body/spirit complex, see the creator. This is an helpful exercise. Exercise 3. Gaze within a mirror. See the creator. Exercise 4. Gaze at the creation which lies about the mind/body/spirit complex of each entity. See the creator. The foundation or prerequisite of these exercises is a predilection towards what may be called meditation, contemplation, or prayer. With this attitude, these exercises can be processed. Without it, the data will not sink down into the roots of the tree of mind, thus enabling and ennobling the body and touching the spirit. Questioner, I was wondering about the advent of the civilizations of Atlantis and Lemuria, when these civilizations occurred, and where did they come from? IMRA. This is the last question of this working. The civilizations of Atlantis and Lemuria were not one but two. Let us look first at the Mu entities. They were beings of a somewhat primitive nature, but those who had very advanced spiritual distortions. The civilization was part of this cycle, experienced early within the cycle at a time of approximately 53,000 of your years ago. It was an helpful and harmless place which was washed beneath the ocean during a readjustment of your sphere's tectonic plates through no action of their own. They sent out those who survived and reached many places in what you call Russia, North America, and South America. Indians of whom you come to feel some sympathy in your social complex distortions are the descendants of these entities. Like the other incarnates of this cycle, they came from elsewhere. However, these particular entities were largely from a second density planet which had some difficulty, due to the age of its sun, in achieving third density life conditions. This planet was from the galaxy Deneb. The Atlantean race was a very conglomerate social complex which began to form approximately 31,000 years in the past of your space/time continuum illusion. It was a slow-growing and very agrarian one until approximately 15,000 of your years ago. It reached quickly a high technological understanding which caused it to be able to use intelligent infinity in an informative manner. We may add that they used intelligent energy as well, manipulating greatly the natural influxes of the indigo or pineal ray from divine or infinite energy. Thus, they were able to create life forms. This they began to do instead of healing and perfecting their own mind/body/spirit complexes, turning their distortions towards what you may call negative. Approximately 11,000 of your years ago, the first of the, what you call, wars, caused approximately 40% of this population to leave the density by means of disintegration of the body. The second and most devastating of the conflicts occurred approximately 10,821 years in the past according to your illusion. This created an earth-changing configuration and the large part of Atlantis was no more, having been inundated. 3 of the positively oriented of the Atlantean groups left this geographical locus before that devastation, placing themselves in the mountain areas of what you call Tibet, what you call Peru, and what you call Turkey. Do you have any brief questions before we close this meeting? Questioner, only one, other than what we can do to make the instrument more comfortable. I would like to have your definition of galaxy, the word galaxy as you have used it. IMRA. We use the term known to your people by the sound vibration galaxy. We accept that some galaxies contain one system of planetary and solar groups. Others contain several. However, the importance of the locus in infinite time/space dimensionality is so little that we accept the distortion implicit in such an ambiguous term. Questioner, then the 9 planets and sun which we have here in our system, would you refer to that as a galaxy? IMRA. We would not. Questioner, how many stars would be approximately in a galaxy? IMRA. It depends upon the galactic system. Your own, as you know, contains many, many, millions of planetary entities and star bodies. Questioner, I was just trying to get to the definition that you were using for galaxy. You mentioned a couple of times the term galaxy in reference to what we call a planetary system, and it was causing some confusion. Is there any way that we can make the instrument more comfortable? IMRA. This instrument could be made somewhat more comfortable if more support were given the body complex. Other than this, we can only repeat the request to carefully align the symbols used to facilitate this instrument's balance. Our contact is narrow-banded, and thus the influx brought in with us must be precise. IMRA. I leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and peace of the one Creator. Adonai. 125. The Law of One, Book I, Session 11. January 28, 1981. IMRA. I greet you in the love and the light of the infinite Creator. I communicate now. Questioner, should we include the ritual that you have suggested that we use to call you in the book that will result from these sessions? IMRA. This matter is of small importance, for our suggestion was made for the purpose of establishing contact through this instrument with this group. Questioner, is it of any assistance to the instrument to have name and name present during these sessions? Does the number in the group make any difference in these sessions? IMRA. The most important of the entities are the questioner and the vibratory sound complex, name. The two entities additionally aid the instrument's comfort by energizing the instrument with their abilities to share the physical energy complex, which is a portion of your love vibration. Questioner, you said yesterday that Maldek was destroyed due to warfare. If Maldek hadn't destroyed itself due to warfare, would it have become a planet that evolved in self-service, and would the entities involved have increased in density, and gone on to say the fourth density in the negative sense or the sense of self-service? IMRA. The planetary social memory complex, Maldek, had in common with your own sphere the situation of a mixture of energy direction. Thus it, though unknown, would most probably have been a mixed harvest, a few moving to fourth density, a few moving towards fourth density in service to self, the great majority repeating third density. This is approximate due to the fact that parallel possibility/probability vortices cease when action occurs and new probability/possibility vortices are begun. Questioner, is there a planet opposite our Sun in relation to us that we do not know about? IMRA. There is a sphere in the area opposite your Sun of a very, very cold nature, but large enough to skew certain statistical figures. This sphere should not properly be called a planet as it is locked in first density. Questioner, you say that entities from Maldek might go to fourth density negative. Are there people who go out of our present third density to places in the universe and serve, which are fourth density self-service negative type of planets? IMRA. Your question is unclear. Please restate. Questioner, as our cycle ends and graduation occurs, is it possible for anyone to go from our third density to a fourth density planet that is of a self-service or negative type? IMRA. We grasp now the specificity of your query. In this harvest, the probability/possibility vortex is an harvest, though small, of this type. That is correct. Questioner, can you tell us what happened to Adolf Hitler? IMRA. The mind/body/spirit complex known as Adolf is at this time in an healing process in the middle astral planes of your spherical force field. This entity was greatly confused and, although aware of the circumstance of change in vibratory level associated with the cessation of the chemical body complex, nevertheless, needed a great deal of care. Questioner, is there anyone in our history who is commonly known who went to a fourth density self-service or negative type of planet, or any who will go there? IMRA. The number of entities thus harvested is small. However, a few have penetrated the 8th level, which is only available from the opening up of the 7th through the 6th. Penetration into the 8th or intelligent infinity level allows a mind/body/spirit complex to be harvested if it wishes at any time/space during the cycle. Questioner, are any of these people known in the history of our planet by name? IMRA. We will mention a few. The one known as Taras Bulba, the one known as Genghis Khan, the one known as Rasputin. Questioner, how did they accomplish this? What was necessary for them to accomplish this? IMRA. All of the aforementioned entities were aware, through memory, of Atlantean understandings having to do with the use of the various centers of mind/body/spirit complex energy influx in attaining the gateway to intelligent infinity. Questioner, did this enable them to do what we refer to as magic? Could they do paranormal things while they were incarnate? IMRA. This is correct. The first two entities mentioned made little use of these abilities consciously. However, they were bent single-mindedly upon service to self, sparing no efforts in personal discipline to double, redouble and so empower this gateway. The third was a conscious adept and also spared no effort in the pursuit of service to self. Questioner, where are these three entities now? RA, IMRA. These entities are in the dimension known to you as fourth. Therefore the space/time continua are not compatible. An approximation of the space/time locus of each would net no actual understanding. Each chose a fourth density planet which was dedicated to the pursuit of the understanding of the law of one through service to self, one in what you know as the Orion Group, one in what you know as Cassiopeia, one in what you know as Southern Cross. However, these loci are not satisfactory. We do not have vocabulary for the geometric calculations necessary for transfer of this understanding to you. Questioner, who went to the Orion Group? RA, IMRA. The one known as Genghis Khan. Questioner, what does he presently do there? What is his job or occupation? RA, IMRA. This entity serves the Creator in its own way. Questioner, is it impossible for you to tell us precisely how he does this service? RA, IMRA. It is possible for us to speak to this query. However, we use any chance we may have to reiterate the basic understanding/learning that all beings serve the Creator. The one you speak of as Genghis Khan, at present, is incarnate in a physical light body which has the work of disseminating material of thought control to those who are what you may call crusaders. He is, as you would term this entity, a shipping clerk. Questioner, what do the crusaders do? RA, IMRA. The crusaders move in their chariots to conquer planetary mind/body/spirit social complexes before they reach the stage of achieving social memory. Questioner, at what stage does a planet achieve social memory? RA, IMRA. A mind/body/spirit social complex becomes a social memory complex when its entire group of entities are of one orientation or seeking. The group memory lost to the individuals in the roots of the tree of mind then becomes known to the social complex, thus creating a social memory complex. The advantages of this complex are the relative lack of distortion in understanding the social beingness and the relative lack of distortion in pursuing the direction of seeking, for all understanding/distortions are available to the entities of the society. Questioner, then we have crusaders from Orion coming to this planet for mind control purposes. How do they do this? RA, IMRA. As all, they follow the law of one observing free will. Contact is made with those who call. Those then upon the planetary sphere act much as due to disseminate the attitudes and philosophy of their particular understanding of the law of one which is service to self. These become the elite. Through these, the attempt begins to create a condition whereby the remainder of the planetary entities are enslaved by their free will. Questioner, can you name any names that may be known on the planet that are recipients of the Crusaders' efforts? RA, IMRA. I am desirous of being in non-violation of the free will distortion. To name those involved in the future of your space/time is to infringe, thus, we withhold this information. We request your contemplation of the fruits of the actions of those entities whom you may observe enjoying the distortion towards power. In this way you may discern for yourself this information. We shall not interfere with the, shall we say, planetary game. It is not central to the harvest. Questioner, how do the Crusaders pass on their concepts to the individuals on Earth? RA, IMRA. There are two main ways, just as there are two main ways of, shall we say, polarizing towards service to others. There are those mind/body/spirit complexes upon your plane who do exercises and perform disciplines in order to seek contact with sources of information and power leading to the opening of the gate to intelligent infinity. There are others whose vibratory complex is such that this gateway is opened in contact with total service to self with its primal distortion of manipulation of others is then afforded with little or no difficulty, no training, and no control. Questioner, what type of information is passed on from the Crusaders to these people? RA, IMRA. The Orion Group passes on information concerning the law of one with the orientation of service to self. The information can become The Law of One, Book I, Session 11. 129. Technical Justice Summon the Confederation, in attempts to aid this planet in service to others, have provided what you would call technical information. The technology provided by this group is in the form of various means of control or manipulation of others to serve the self. Questioner, do you mean to say then that some scientists receive technical information, shall we say, telepathically that comes out then as usable gadgetry? RA, IMRA. That is correct. However, very positively, as you would call this distortion-oriented scientists have received information intended to unlock peaceful means of progress which redounded unto the last echoes of potential destruction due to further reception of other scientists of a negative orientation/distortion. Questioner, is this how we learned of nuclear energy? Was it mixed with both positive and negative orientation? RA, IMRA. That is correct. The entities responsible for the gathering of the scientists were of a mixed orientation. The scientists were overwhelmingly positive in their orientation. The scientists who followed their work were of mixed orientation, including one extremely negative entity, as you would term it. Questioner, is this extremely negative entity still incarnate on Earth? RA, IMRA. This is correct. Questioner, then I would assume that you can't name him. So I will ask you where Nikola Tesla got his information? IMRA. The one known as Nikola received information from Confederation sources desirous of aiding this extremely, shall we say, angelically positive entity in bettering the existence of its fellow mind/body/spirit complexes. It is unfortunate, shall we say, that like many wanderers the vibratory distortions of third-density illusion caused this entity to become extremely distorted in its perceptions of its fellow mind/body/spirit complexes so that its mission was hindered and in the result, perverted from its purposes. Questioner, how was Tesla's work supposed to benefit man on Earth, and what were its purposes? IMRA. The most desired purpose of the mind/body/spirit complex, Nikola, was the freeing of all planetary entities from the darkness. Thus, it attempted to give to the planet the infinite energy of the planetary sphere for use in lighting and power. The Law of One, Book I, Session 11. 130. Questioner, by freeing the planetary entities from darkness, precisely what do you mean? IMRA, most of the following answer was lost due to tape recorder malfunction. The core of the response was as follows. We spoke of freeing people from darkness in a literal sense. Questioner, would this freeing from darkness be commensurate with the Law of One or does this have any real product? IMRA. The product of such a freeing would create two experiences. Firstly, the experience of no need to find the necessary emolument for payment, in your money, for energy. Secondly, the leisure afforded, thereby exemplifying the possibility and enhancing the probability of the freedom to then search the self, the beginning of seeking the Law of One. Few there are working physically from daybreak to darkness, as you name them, upon your plane who can contemplate the Law of One in a conscious fashion. Questioner, what about the Industrial Revolution in general? Was this planned in any way? IMRA. This will be the final question of this session. That is correct. Wanderers incarnated in several waves, as you may call them, in order to bring into existence the gradual freeing from the demands of the diurnal cycles and lack of freedom of leisure. Questioner, that was the last question, so I will do as usual and ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable? IMRA. You are doing well. The most important thing is to carefully align the symbols. The adjustment made this particular time/space present will aid this instrument's physical complex in the distortion towards comfort. May we ask if you have any short questions which we may resolve before closing the session? Questioner, I don't know if this is a short question or not, so we can save it till next time, but my question is, why do the Crusaders from Orion do this? What is their ultimate objective? This is probably too long to answer. IMRA. This is not too long to answer. To serve the self is to serve all. The service of the self, when seen in this perspective, requires an ever expanding use of the energies of others for manipulation to the benefit of the self with distortion towards power. If there are further queries to further explicate this subject, we shall be with you again. Questioner, there was one thing that I forgot. Is it possible to have another session later on today? IMRA. It is well. Questioner, thank you. IMRA. I leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth, then, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one creator. Adonai. 132. The Law of One, Book I, Session 12. January 28, 1981. IMRA. I greet you in the love and the light of the infinite creator. I communicate now. Questioner, in the last session you mentioned that the Orion Crusaders came here in chariots. Could you describe the chariots? IMRA. The term chariot is a term used in warfare among your peoples. That is its significance. The shape of the Orion craft is one of the following. Firstly, the elongated, ovoid shape which is of a darker nature than silver but which has a metallic appearance if seen in the light. In the absence of light, it appears to be red or fiery in some manner. Other craft include disc-shaped objects of a small nature approximately 12 feet in your measurement in diameter, the box-like shape approximately 40 feet to a side in your measurement. Other craft can take on a desired shape through the use of thought control mechanisms. There are various civilization complexes which work within this group. Some are more able to use intelligent infinity than others. The information is very seldom shared, therefore, the chariots vary greatly in shape and appearance. Questioner, is there any effort on the part of the Confederation to stop the Orion chariots from arriving here? IMRA. Every effort is made to quarantine this planet. However, the network of guardians, much like any other pattern of patrols on whatever level, does not hinder each and every entity from penetrating quarantine, for if request is made in light/love, the Law of One will be met with acquiescence. If the request is not made, due to the slipping through the net, then there is penetration of this net. Questioner, who makes this request? IMRA. Your query is unclear. Please restate. Questioner, I don't understand how the Confederation stops the Orion chariots from coming through the quarantine. IMRA. There is contact at the level of lifeform or light body being depending upon the vibratory level of the guardian. These guardians sweep reaches of your Earth's energy fields to be aware of any entities approaching. An entity which is approaching is hailed in the name of the one creator. Any entity thus hailed is bathed in love/light and will of free will obey the quarantine due to the power of the Law of One. Questioner, what would happen to the entity if he did not obey the quarantine after being hailed? RA. To not obey quarantine after being hailed on the level of which we speak would be equivalent to your not stopping upon walking into a solid brick wall. Questioner, what would happen to the entity if he did this? What would happen to his chariot? RA. The creator is one being. The vibratory level of those able to breach the quarantine boundaries is such that upon seeing the love/light net, it is impossible to break this law. Therefore, nothing happens. No attempt is made. There is no confrontation. The only beings who are able to penetrate the quarantine are those who discover windows or distortions in the space/time continuum surrounding your planet's energy fields. Through these windows they come. These windows are rare and unpredictable. Questioner, does this account for what we call UFO flaps, where a large number of UFOs show up like in 1973? RA. This is correct. Questioner, are most of the UFOs which are seen in our skies from the Orion group? RA. Many of those seen in your skies are of the Orion group. They send out messages. Some are received by those who are oriented toward service to others. These messages then are altered to be acceptable to those entities while warning of difficulties ahead. This is the most that self-serving entities can do when faced with those whose wish is to serve others. The contacts which the group finds most helpful to their cause are those contacts made with entities whose orientation is towards service to self. There are many thought form entities in your skies which are of a positive nature and are the projections of the Confederation. Questioner, you mentioned that the Orion Crusaders, when they get through the net, give both technical and non-technical information. I think I know what you mean by technical information, but what type of non-technical information do they give? And am I right in assuming that this is done by telepathic contact? RA. This is correct. Through telepathy, the philosophy of the law of one with the distortion of service to self is promulgated. In advanced groups, there are rituals and exercises given, and these have been written down just as the service to others oriented entities have written down the promulgated philosophy of their teachers. The philosophy concerns the service of manipulating others that they may experience service towards the other self, thus through this experience becoming able to appreciate service to self. These entities would become oriented towards service to self and in turn manipulate yet others so that they in turn might experience the service towards the other self. Questioner, would this be the origin of what we call black magic? RA. This is correct in one sense, incorrect in another. The Orion group has aided the so-called negatively oriented among your mind/body/spirit complexes. These same entities would be concerning themselves with service to self in any case, and there are many upon your so-called inner planes which are negatively oriented and thus available as inner teachers or guides and so-called possessors of certain souls who seek this distortion of service to self. Questioner, is it possible for an entity here on Earth to be so confused as to call both the Confederation and the Orion group in an alternating way, first one, then the other, and then back to the first again? RA. It is entirely possible for the untuned channel, as you call that service, to receive both positive and negative communications. If the entity at the base of its confusion is oriented toward service to others, the entity will begin to receive messages of doom. If the entity at the base of the complex of beingness is oriented towards service to self, the Crusaders, who in this case do not find it necessary to lie, will simply begin to give the philosophy they are here to give. Many of your so-called contacts among your people have been confused and self-destructive because the channels were oriented towards service to others but, in the desire for proof, were open to the lying information of the Crusaders who then were able to neutralize the effectiveness of the channel. Questioner, are most of these Crusaders fourth density? RA. There is a majority of fourth density. That is correct. Questioner, is an entity in the fourth density normally invisible to us? RA. The use of the word normal is one which befuddles the meaning of the question. Let us rephrase for clarity. The fourth density is, by choice, not visible to third density. It is possible for fourth density to be visible. However, it is not the choice of the fourth density entity to be visible due to the necessity for concentration upon a rather difficult vibrational complex, which is the third density you experience. Questioner, are there any Confederation or Orion entities living upon the Earth and operating visibly among us in our society at this time? RA. There are no entities of either group walking among you at this time. However, the Crusaders of Orion use two types of entities to do their bidding, shall we say. The first type is the thought form, the second, a kind of robot. Questioner, could you describe the robot? RA. The robot may look like any other being. It is a construct. Questioner, is the robot what is normally called the Men in Black? RA. This is incorrect. Questioner, who are the Men in Black? RA. The Men in Black are a thought form type of entity which have some beingness to their makeup. They have certain physical characteristics given them. However, their true vibrational nature is without third density vibrational characteristics and, therefore, they are able to materialize and dematerialize when necessary. Questioner, are all of these Men in Black then used by the Orion Crusaders? RA. This is correct. Questioner, you spoke of wanderers. Who are wanderers? Where do they come from? RA. Imagine, if you will, the sands of your shores. As countless as the grains of sand are the sources of intelligent infinity. When a social memory complex has achieved its complete understanding of its desire, it may conclude that its desire is service to others with the distortion towards reaching their hand, figuratively, to any entities who call for aid. These entities, whom you may call the brothers and sisters of sorrow, move toward this calling of sorrow. These entities are from all reaches of the infinite creation and are bound together by the desire to serve in this distortion. Questioner, how many of them are incarnate on Earth now? IMRA. The number is approximate due to an heavy influx of those birthed at this time due to an intensive need to lighten the planetary vibration and thus aid in harvest. The number approaches 65 million. Questioner, are most of these from the fourth density? Or what density do they come from? IMRA. Few there are of fourth density. The largest number of wanderers, as you call them, are of the sixth density. The desire to serve. The Law of One, Book I, Session 12. 136. Must be distorted towards a great deal of purity of mind and what you may call foolhardiness or bravery, depending upon your distortion complex judgment. The challenge/danger of the wanderer is that it will forget its mission, become karmically involved, and thus be swept into the maelstrom of which it had incarnated to avert the destruction. Questioner, what could one of these entities do to become karmically involved? Could you give an example of that? IMRA. An entity which acts in a consciously unloving manner in action with other beings can become karmically involved. Questioner, do many of these wanderers have physical ailments in this third density situation? IMRA. Due to the extreme variance between the vibratory distortions of third density and those of the more dense densities, if you will, wanderers have as a general rule some form of handicap, difficulty, or feeling of alienation which is severe. The most common of these difficulties are alienation, the reaction against the planetary vibration by personality disorders, as you would call them, and body complex ailments indicating difficulty in adjustment to the planetary vibrations such as allergies, as you would call them. Questioner, thank you. Is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable? IMRA. We ask you to realign the object upon which the symbols sit. It is not a significant distortion for only one session, but you will find upon measuring the entire assemblage that the resting place is 1.4 degrees from the correct alignment, the resting place an additional 0.5 away from proper orientation. Do not concern yourselves with this in the space/time nexus present, but do not allow these distortions to remain over a long period where the contact will be gradually impaired. IMRA. I leave you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one creator. Adonai. 137. The Law of One, Book I, Session 13. January 29, 1981. IMRA. I greet you in the love and the light of the infinite creator. I communicate now. Questioner, first of all I would like to apologize for asking so many stupid questions while searching for what we should do. I consider what we are doing to be a great honor and privilege to also be humble messengers of the Law of One. I now believe that the way to prepare this book is to start at the beginning of creation and follow through the evolution of man on Earth, investigating at all times how the Law of One was used. I would also like to make as the title of the book, The Law of One, and I would like to state as the author, RA. Would you agree to this? IMRA. Your query is unclear. Would you please state as separate queries each area of agreement? Questioner, first, I would like to start at the beginning of creation, as far back as we can go and follow the development of man to the present time. Is this agreeable? IMRA. This is completely your discernment/understanding/decision. Questioner, secondly, I would like to title the book, The Law of One, by RA. Is this agreeable? IMRA. The title of the book is acceptable. The authorship by vibratory sound complex RA is, in our distortion of understanding, incomplete. We are messengers. Questioner, can you state who then should author the book? IMRA. I can only request that if your discernment/understanding suggests the use of this vibratory sound complex, RA, the phrase and humble messenger of the Law of One be appended. Questioner, thank you. Can you tell me of the first known thing in the creation? IMRA. The first known thing in the creation is infinity. The infinity is creation. Questioner, from this infinity then must come what we experience as creation. What was the next step or the next evolvement? IMRA infinity became aware. This was the next step. IMRA awareness led to the focus of infinity into infinite energy. You have called this by various vibrational sound complexes, the most common to your ears being logos or love. The creator is the focusing of infinity as an aware or conscious principle called by us as closely as we can create understanding/learning in your language, intelligent infinity. Questioner, can you state the next step? IMRA. The next step is still at this space/time nexus in your illusion achieving its progression as you may see it in your illusion. The next step is an infinite reaction to the creative principle following the Law of One in one of its primal distortions, freedom of will. Thus many dimensions, infinite in number, are possible. The energy moves from the intelligent infinity due first to the outpouring of randomized creative force, this then creating patterns which in holographic style appear as the entire creation no matter which direction where energy is explored. These patterns of energy begin then to regularize their own local, shall we say, rhythms and fields of energy, thus creating dimensions and universes. Questioner, then can you tell me how the galaxy and planetary systems were formed? IMRA. You must imagine a great leap of thought in this query, for at the last query, the physical, as you call it, universes were not yet born. The energies moved in increasingly intelligent patterns until the individualization of various energies emanating from the creative principle of intelligent infinity became such as to be co-creators. Thus the so-called physical matter began. The concept of light is instrumental in grasping this great leap of thought, as this vibrational distortion of infinity is the building block of that which is known as matter, the light being intelligent and full of energy, thus being the first distortion of intelligent infinity, which was called by the creative principle. This light of love was made to have in its occurrences of being certain characteristics, among them the infinite whole paradoxically described by the straight line, as you would call it. This paradox is responsible for the shape of the various physical illusion entities you call solar systems, galaxies, and planets of revolving and tending towards the lenticular. Questioner, I think I made an error in getting ahead of the process you were describing. Would it be helpful to fill in that great leap due to the mistake I made? RA. I attempted to bridge the gap. However, you may question me in any manner you deem appropriate. Questioner, taking the question just before the one I asked about the galaxies and planets, and tell me what the next step was from there? RA. The steps, as you call them, are, at the point of question, simultaneous and infinite. Questioner, can you tell me how intelligent infinity became, shall we say, I'm having difficulty with the language, how intelligent infinity became individualized from itself? RA. This is an appropriate question. The intelligent infinity discerned a concept. This concept was discerned to be freedom of will of awareness. This concept was finity. This was the first and primal paradox or distortion of the law of one. Thus the one intelligent infinity invested itself in an exploration of many-ness. Due to the infinite possibilities of intelligent infinity, there is no ending to many-ness. The exploration, thus, is free to continue infinitely in an eternal present. Questioner, was the galaxy that we are in created by the infinite intelligence, or was it created by a portion of the infinite intelligence? RA. The galaxy and all other things of material of which you are aware are products of individualized portions of intelligent infinity. As each exploration began, it, in turn, found its focus and became co-creator. Using intelligent infinity, each portion created an universe and allowing the rhythms of free choice to flow, playing with the infinite spectrum of possibilities, each individualized portion channeled the love/light into what you might call intelligent energy, thus creating the so-called natural laws of any particular universe. Each universe, in turn, individualized to a focus becoming, in turn, co-creator and allowing further diversity, thus creating further intelligent energies regularizing or causing natural laws to appear in the vibrational patterns of what you would call a solar system. Thus, each solar system has its own, shall we say, local coordinate system of illusory natural laws. It shall be understood that any portion, no matter how small, of any density or illusory pattern contains, as in an holographic picture, the one creator which is infinity. Thus all begins and ends in mystery.